So then we are back with more understandings from the Renewed Covenant, from the Aramaic English translation of the Word. This translation is from the original documents of the Hebrews of old, from the time of the prophets of Israel, giving us then the end of time prophecies and then the last course of action of this world until the closing of the age. So then we can refer to these scriptures as per then the teachings of the holy Hebrews of old from the time of Israel, when they were obedient to the holy instructions and also the covenant with Abraham. So then these days where we find then many of the nations in trouble, as then the Messiah had precisely spoken. In Matthew the 24th chapter you find the Messiah then explaining then the second temple, the destruction of the temple. He was speaking of the future. A very brief explanation because he spoke a whole lot more. And we understand because the content of the renewed covenant of the time of the Messiah does not match with the number of prophecies related with the times and seasons, not only of himself completing the spring feast. Try to understand the context of the situation. Those were obviously the Messiah came and he completed the spring feast, and then those were recorded in the prophets. However, events of the future also the Messiah spoke, and he gave precise understandings from the Torah, from the prophets, from the writings. He gave them those, and the people were very much educated, but the problem is when then they were sent to go around the world and form holy cities, then the situation was then Israel decided to go back to their old junkies. So then the Messiah went on. He moved on. He had to get his plan finished up. He went to heaven, and there he is at the right hand of Yahweh, and through him then comes the petitions. And in our country, obviously, we are working towards this last piece of the earth's history. Namely then China taking over the trades. They're going to be the leaders of the trades of the end. Where we find this, Revelation the 8th chapter. It's extremely simple. As long as then people are then acquainted with reading the scripture as per seasons and the times, then becomes a whole lot easier. Then you begin to understand what Yohanan then did when those people found that stack of Megillas. Then we understand why they were stacked. Because there was a reason for those. They should never place the information on regular paper and making a codex out of it. They should have maintained as per Megillas. So then, understanding what's going on in our country, we have found then that there were schemes, dirty schemes, not in this government, but in the previous covenant. Many schemes were done before this government, and then when you begin to evaluate what was going on, then prior of this government, you find then gasoline very cheap. You find then the nation somewhat prospering, hopes and so on and so forth. But then you have to understand the dark side of the schemes. We were not paying our dues. We were heavily indebted. That's the truth of it. We can't make it up stories. We present the truth as they are. And then the scheme was, then they were piling up debt, and they want a way out of it. So they found the president, he is half black. So they thought, oh, let's have this black person then in charge, or at least for a term. So then he pays the debt, he gets the blame, then the nation goes down, and then they blame them forever. That's the truth of it. Absolutely truth. You can't make it up. But then the situation is changing. Because the evil they intended is turning against them. And people should not be doing this. People should pay their dues. The nation had the condition to pay. So they intended evil towards him. But then we understand at this very time, then prophecies are coming, and then we are aligning ourselves with them very wisely. And our nation, as per the record, as who we were in the past, it's going to work in the future as long as we are in line with the Scripture, but then the true Scripture. So then not only this term is going to be extended to a second term, but then the evil they plot then is going to be against them. Because this government is on track, and a lot of the trouble created during this government was created in purpose. Only because he's half black. The government was working in such a way, working against him, to make him very bad. That's the truth of it. So then we should be considerate and reverse this great evil, and then do what we should be doing. We should pay our dues. The plan is very nice, very understandable. We have a slow pace of growth in the economy, but very steady. Obviously, after we paid so much during the first portion of the government, then it's going to take some time to get leveled. And it's very unrealistic and very childish thinking that after a big plunge in debt, then we would be able to be in a positive in a short term. It's insanity. It takes time. So we are leveling very slowly but gradual, and then at some point we should level. So we should maintain this government as it is, as per plan, as it started 40 years ago, and then implement this new technological equipment generation, and then we make a deal with Congo, because they have a lot of rare materials over there. And then we privatize most of our agencies. That's a must. We can't go any further if we have lots of parasite systems in our system. We must get rid of them without jeopardizing its services. Because the technology is so high these days that a lot of information, what was required in the future, what it was back then, we thought we would never be able to get away from not hiring so many people. This day that we have computers, then not so many people. So then we can eliminate a lot of expenses from the federal government and leaning up. Because the previous government thought evil of this government, so in return, as consequence, privatization. So they thought it would not work. In turn, it's going to work, and very nicely, in fact. And as the plans are developing, we might be able to get away from debt and being in a positive ever since the time of Jackson. If we work diligently, very surely we can do it. But then, extracting our natural resources, being wise with our resources, and then petroleum, natural gas, and coal, power plants must be built. And we should remind ourselves who we were prior of the Second World War, and then we have to become Americans. So the schemes that they were thinking did not work. So then people are asking, why is then gasoline so expensive? No, duh. Do you realize how much we have to pay when the government started? Must be given another term, and then at the end of the second term, then we evaluate where we stand at. But then by then we're going to make so many savings, and then we'll be able to manage it. So far there are so many factions in our government working against each other rather than working together. It's because it became fat. The system, in quote, became fat with lazy people. And came to a point they have no shame on the face. And they enjoying each other's incompetence. That's the truth of it. We can't make it up anymore. They plot scheme evil towards the president and he caught it. That's the truth of it. They were holding up, piling up debt, and then, oh, let's put the black guy over there and he takes care of the debt, and then he plunges the nation down. And then we take over it again and blame them for the rest of the time on the earth. But they caught it. What's going to take place? Every black American is going to vote for Obama. And the nation is going to turn around. No, to do plot against people and to do evil, knowing that people in the nations doing evil never works at some point. It simply turns the time is lining up perfectly, absolutely perfectly. And then understanding from the scripture, China is coming. And then the great deal is we understand what to do when the second term starts. We are going to be very observative in what kind of a computer system the Chinese are going to put out in the market. The first signs of the trade system of the Chinese way of doing trade in the internet, oh boy, that's our clue to join them up. And as we do trade via computerized systems, then as we begin to make easy payments and try to level our economy, it's already in the system. Because we have a lot of natural resources, and obviously we can pay them with natural resources also. So there are many ways of doing it. But the situation is lined up very perfectly as long as we are wise in what not to do. Then we have the great benefit of having rare materials from Congo. Boy, that's truly a privilege. What a perfect plan. Not only the place is remaining nearly intact, but the Chinese have not gone over there yet in great numbers. It's nearly unexplored. As the holy city from the cities then gets established, then the entire continent is going to develop. And we have the benefit of being the first people over there making a true great deal legalized to get those rare materials, then building up our economy. It's going to be for some time the time of the lean cows for some time, but then later it stabilizes. But every nation goes through this period. Please stay tuned, much more coming up.